Hello everybody, this is Robert Grigore of the Mental Health Show with Robert Grigore. If you're new to the channel, or you're just following me, or just learning about me, I'll tell you a few things about myself. I'm a registered clinical counselor. I'm the founder of Grigore Counseling and Associates, which is a national EMDR clinic going across Canada, specializing in EMDR for usually professionals and their families and loved ones, etc. I'm also an EMDR certified EMDR therapist and an EMDR approved EMDR consultant, which is what these two certificates are for. Which is the EMDR International Association. For those of you who may not be aware, that is the governing body, let's say, of EMDR therapists, or the regulation body of EMDR therapists within North America. Okay, so a few different things I want to talk about on this video is dissociation, because it's such an important topic, and in order to cover that, we have to talk about the Polyvagal Theory, and then I want to get to a couple of grounding techniques that's really useful. So stay tuned for all of that. It's going to be really useful. As a clinician, I have had over 1,000 clients that I've successfully treated over the course of my career, and growing, and then with my team together, we're into the several thousands of clients territory. And I've also had my own experiences of dissociation, which I'll share with you, because I think it's probably useful to know. So, okay, now, I want to talk a little bit about the Polyvagal Theory, and then we'll get into dissociation, and then how we can counter dissociation so you can feel more in control. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here and explain the Polyvagal Theory. Now, this diagram is not something I've created myself, but it's something that I find incredibly useful, and I really, really, really love it. Okay, so I'll zoom in a tiny bit, but I'll just, so if you want to Google it, it's How to Map Your Own Nervous System, the Polyvagal Theory, posted by Ariane Meismer, I think is how you pronounce it, and it's been adapted by Ruby Jo Walker from Cheryl Sanders, Anthony Twig Wheeler, and Stephen Porges. Porges is who I know of. That was the originator of this system. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Polyvagal Theory. It's extremely useful. This has been a game changer in my practice, and it's been a game changer for clients to realize that they're not actually, you know, like going crazy and stuff. Okay, so right over here, so we've got three. What is this diagram? There's a lot of stuff on here. Okay, so we've got the social engagement, fight or flight, and freeze. So most people know about fight or flight, and some know about freeze. Social engagement is extremely important. Okay, so we've got three basic nervous system responses in our body. Okay, we've got the green zone, which is social engagement. This is where we feel calm, grounded, peaceful, in control, present, calm, curious, open. This is where our, the best relationships happen. You feel grounded, you feel present. This is where most people strive to be, okay? This is ventral vagal, calm in your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, this is when you're, you've heard the term rest and digest. That's here, right? You are getting increased digestion. You start to have a better immune response. You feel rested, recuperated, lots of more energy. You feel healthier. All kinds of good stuff happens here. Okay, you can read into that. You don't need as many, defensive responses in this stage. I want you to notice this black line. This is stress in your body. Okay, so in this, notice that the stress in your body, you can have a little bit and still be grounded. Okay, still be okay, present. Once the stress increases, and then we enter into our fight or flight response. Okay, so this is your frustration on the fight side, worry, concern on your flight side. As you go up, you can see that it gets more intense, right? Anxiety, fear, panic, irritation, anger, rage. But I want you just to notice that you still can handle this, right? This is right here. Even though it's disturbing or very distressing in my body, my heart rate's increasing, your adrenaline's pumping, your blood pressure is increasing. You're ready for a fight, or you're ready to run away from something is what's going on in your body. But you still can handle it. That's an important part, right? This is your sympathetic response at this point, called hyperarousal. There is an imaginary line that we cross when the stress feels too great for the resources that we have available, okay? That's important. When that happens, we no longer feel like we can handle it anymore. We go into, I cannot handle it. We feel helpless. This is where depression happens here, right? You might feel numb. Another thing that happens here is addiction. Okay, this is another spot where that goes there. And then dissociation, okay? At its absolute worst, we're in freeze zone. This could be, at its extreme, it could be catatonia, where I've had a couple clients, that just sort of freeze for a while and they don't move. Or it could be entirely collapse, where you're fainting and that's that, right? And then you wake up a little bit later, okay? This, and I don't know about this exactly, so don't quote me on this, but this could be where seizures may happen for some people, but I also suspect that could happen here in the fight or flight area as well, but it could be here. I've had some clients in the past that have, fainted or had some seizure-like experiences, but they were not actual seizures. Okay, they were happening here. So again, I'm not a doctor, so speak to your doctor, your neurologist about that. Okay, but these are some of the things that happen in this red zone: shame, shutdown responses, hopelessness, suicidal ideation or preparation for death. This happens here too. And then this really trapped feeling, and then eventually you'll come back down and then back into the green zone over time. Now, this video is about dissociation, so let's tackle dissociation. So what is dissociation exactly? Okay, as you can see, you are not feeling that you can handle the stressor anymore. Okay, but you are going to feel a little bit more calm in your nervous system than you did over here. Okay, so your body does what it needs to do, your nervous system does what it thinks it needs to do in order to survive. Okay, so this feels awful, and when the threat feels like a life threat, I'm going to die, I cannot handle this, and to the mind, feeling like you can't handle something, you can't answer a question, that is akin to death. Okay, so loss of identity for the brain and nervous system really quite feels like death, and then we can go into that red zone up there. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my screen for a moment here. Hang on, there we go. Okay, so so dissociation can look like a few different things for different people. Dissociation is on a range of experiences, which I'd say that there is a little bit of a normal range of dissociation. Okay, so one thing that dissociation can look like for people is sort of being spacey for a little bit, sort of checking out into imagination land, or thinking about nothing for a little bit, and then coming back to. Okay, some people have had the experience of, say, riding the train or the bus or even driving the same route over and over and over again for work or for school or something, and not remember the trip. Kind of get there, you're pulling into your garage, you're like, hey, I don't really remember driving today. That's weird, right? Or wow, we're at my stop already. That was fast. And then you just, so to some degree, that's like not dangerous per se, right? Your other parts of your brain is still functioning and working on reflex, and you're still able to focus. And then odds are, if there was like a stressful encounter on the road, somebody cut into the lane that you're in, you would jump right back into present focus, and then you'd be able to respond to that. So if I were to say that, that's pretty normal dissociation. But some people describe some other stuff. So in terms of this chart, this polyvagal theory, when we get into that red zone dissociation, we're looking at feelings like a couple of things, like some people describe sort of feeling like a tunnel, right? So you have your visions in the middle here, but then around you is sort of black, and starts to get darker and darker and darker, and just sort of tunnels you into this tiny little speck. people usually feel really nauseous when that's happening. You start to sweat, like you think you might vomit. It's almost like your body feels or has a kind of similar responses as if you're being poisoned, which I believe is an evolutionary thing, actually, because way back when we're foraging and picking berries and stuff, we might have eaten something that was dangerous to eat, like a poisonous berry or maybe moldy food or something, and then instead of letting ourselves digest that, we actually vomited it up, which could have saved our lives. So that's just my take. I think that's an evolutionary thing. I think it was a survival technique, and actually everything our body does is about survival. So that's really important, that every weird thing that goes on actually is about protecting us. And it's back to dissociation. Another one is, sort of like the driving or the bus riding example, is staring off into space, but for extended periods of time. So like sitting on the couch and then just sort of checking out, and then you don't know where you were for the last 20 minutes or 2 hours. I've had, and sometimes almost a full day. So that can happen for some people. And then another example of dissociation is, which would be a different realm, is sort of depersonalization. Okay, that means that the individual doesn't quite feel like themselves anymore. They either don't feel like a human being at all, okay, or they don't feel like they are their own self, right? They're like a character in a play, or a character in a movie or a video game, and that can sort of feel depersonalized from their regular ways of living. Okay, so that's one. Another one is derealization, which is the world around them doesn't feel real. Okay, so that would be as if the people are they're their actual self, but the world is a movie, or the world is a video game, or it's sort of a cartoon character. I've had some people, past clients, a long time ago now when I was starting off, that one client said that he started to see individuals around him as different colors and shapes and stuff, and stopped seeing people as people, okay, or they were cartoon characters at one time. So he started, it's sort of like you're losing touch with reality, which is really another way of saying it. Okay, not quite to the point of I guess you might say it's a little bit of a hallucination or delusion, if you will, but a little different, because you're dissociated. That's going to happen around the same. It's almost like a hallucination, almost like a dissociation. It's just a good way of putting it. Let's just cut that part out altogether. Okay. So another example of dissociation is, I've actually had this myself a few times, is starting to actually see myself like an out-of-body experience. Okay, so a couple of examples of this. Believe it or not, I used to be a musician. I used to play in a band called Earthbound George. I was the lead singer, rhythm guitarist, and we were playing this venue called the Railway Club in Vancouver, BC. It's a great venue. There's some really well-named, big name musicians that played there. Katie Lang was one of them. I believe Radiohead was one of them. And some other big name bands that have played there. And I remember, being there. I was really nervous to play the set, and there was quite a few people there. It was my first big venue, if you will, and I was nervous. My heart was pounding, sweating. I needed to constantly drink, and then we were playing the song, and I was so nervous playing the song that I dissociated, and I actually literally saw myself from the ceiling looking down, and I could see myself in the front, band members behind me playing this, and the weird thing was, and if that's not weird enough, another weird thing was, I was like, hey, that sounds really good, right on, like, wow. So what happens if you stop playing? And then instantly I realized the music would stop, and then that shot me right back into being present, and then I was engaged for the rest of the show. So I was dissociated entirely for that first just like a couple of seconds, maybe 5-10 seconds, and then I was back into it. Another time that happened, and you might get a kick out of this, trigger alert if you have any driving scenarios that are really stressful. But my guitar player and I were sitting in this U-Haul, and we were moving me to my partner into my place. And we disobeyed when you move into a parking garage, they have that little yellow bar that tells you the height, the allowances, and we're like, we can fit past that. That's probably just to be safe for people. And we went in anyway. What we didn't realize was that the height at the beginning of the parking garage was this big, let's say, and then it got smaller and smaller as we went in. So we heard a sound on the top of the roof, and like, oh shoot, what is that? And then eventually we kept going, and this is so tight that we couldn't stop, we couldn't back up. There was a car behind me, honking, and I was like, uh-oh, I started panicking, okay? So as we're going forward here, we eventually got to the point where I just was stuck. I couldn't move. I was absolutely jammed. And this point, I panicked so bad that I remember getting out of the vehicle and sort of walking in the middle of the parkade here, and just sort of doing one of these like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And in that moment, I felt so powerless, so overwhelmed, and so little. I instantly felt like a child, maybe an adolescent or something, a child or adolescent, and I remember wanting to call my dad. And my dad's the kind of guy that he'll show up and he'll help me. He's helped me move out of places with abusive relationships before. Like, he would come, no questions asked. He just, where are you? I'll be there. And I love that about him. But he also happens to be 5,000 kilometers away, so it wasn't like he's going to be able to come to my rescue. And so I didn't know what to do. You know what? The universe showed up and helped me out in that moment. I was so grateful. What happened was we had a security guard, heard about this and, came down to see what was going on. And was like, oh my God, you are screwed. I was like, yeah, I'm screwed. And so then what we did is he had this brilliant idea of letting the tires, some air out of the tires. So we did all of the tires, and we let out a few inches off each tire, which dropped the overall height of the vehicle. So if you're ever stuck by the roof, that's one strategy. The next thing that they did was gathered a couple other people that were around, and stood on the back of the vehicle, where there's like a lip where you can stand on to put the U-Haul up, the back door up. And that, with the weight, maybe 400 pounds of people on the back, dropped the weight even more. So it was just enough that we could get out and drive away. Okay, so here's a couple of things that happened. I want to dissect that for a moment with you. As I was panicking, okay, I'm just going to share my screen again here. So as I was panicking, I was right up here. Like, I don't know how to handle this. I'm overwhelmed. I'm helpless. I can't handle it. I'm out of here. Dissociated all the way. Right? So almost collapsed in the walking around. That was really strange. But a couple of things that happened when I got the help from these random strangers, it shot me right down into social engagement. Right? This person came to help, and I trusted that they had my best interest in mind. And I said, absolutely, I'll take your help. Whatever you got, I'll take it. Thank you. And it really pushed my nervous system down because I reconnected with social. Social engagement is one of the most powerful ways to ground yourself out there. It's what we do during natural disasters. We reach out, and it doesn't matter who that person is. Human beings tend to, connect in that moment of crisis just because we're human. So it's one of those pretty powerful things. Now, again, there's outliers and extreme cases here, but so just to share those. So it came down much closer, maybe not all the way into the green zone, but more into like just the anxiety. I was no longer panicking. I had a plan. I had an action. It seemed like it's working, and I felt better. Okay, so that's in my nervous system what happened. Eventually, I got out. We took away. Now, I did cause an enormous amount of damage on the U-Haul. Over $1,000 at least of damage to the roof, and I broke a light, and it was shitty. But it was better than millions of dollars of damage that could have been done to they had exposed pipes and stuff in the ceiling of the parking garage. And, we've had floods in the building before because I lived there earlier as well. And so this could have been millions of dollars of damage. So I avoided all of that and just had like $1,000 to pay, which I was gladly thank you so much. Bye. Let me never talk about that again. Here I am talking about it. So anyway, that was another example of dissociation where I just sort of floated out of my body, came back into it. There are other types, as long as you just sort of notice, you start to feel like you're not yourself anymore, you sort of check out. To the absolute extreme of dissociation, you might have, parts that come alive. A dissociative identity disorder is in that realm. But that's not everybody. That's a small percentage of people, but it could be, maybe that's you or somebody that you know. Nothing wrong with that. It's just the way that your nervous system has decided to handle that particular stressor. Okay? Because again, the purpose of every situation, your nervous system state is to stay alive. Okay, so that red zone, way back when, I think it's quite a survival mechanism. When we were hunted by saber-toothed tigers and stuff. If we found ourselves in the jaws of one of these tigers, probably, not much fighting is going to be able to happen. But, we just sort of go limp, and our body starts to shut off the least important organs in first, and then leading up to the most vital organs. As a way to prepare and save as much energy as possible, just in case there's one last hurrah of effort. Okay, so like for example, you don't really need your gallbladder in this moment. You don't really need your spleen for right now. You don't really need your liver right this second, but you need your heart, you need your lungs, you need your brain, right? So those are the last to get shut off, but everything will start to shut off that way, and it will protect your nervous system in case, let's say the saber-toothed tiger puts you down and goes over to its lovely little cubs. Dinner's here, right? In that moment, although you may be bloody and in a lot of pain, although you wouldn't feel it, because if you remember in the red zone there was a decreased pain threshold. So thankfully too, when you're up there, your body pumps all kinds of amazing neurochemicals throughout your system so that you have no pain. So it's decreased or increased pain threshold or decreased pain response. So it's why if you've ever been in a really bad injury, a lot of people say they don't feel it. Just don't feel it at all. But there is obviously something seriously wrong that's happened, right? So shock, and there's another way is in there. Okay, so back to this dissociation. So you kind of get an idea, I think, of dissociation. Its vital importances of how it helps us and protects us. But what do you do when you're finding yourself dissociated and it doesn't really make a lot of sense for the situation, or you need to be back into control, like me in the parking garage? Like nobody's going to drive that thing out but me, right? So I got to take control here. What do you do? So I can do a couple of different grounding techniques that are really helpful. In another video, I talked about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding, which is really useful. Also, I talked about the 4 elements grounding, which is also very useful. So check those videos out in the future. But another one that I really like is isometric grounding. Okay, so what this means is using your own body's tension to feel grounded. Okay, so to bring you back into that yellow zone. So what this would look like, one of them is grabbing your hands and pushing them together. Okay, don't push too hard. So one hand goes this way, one hand goes this way. Don't push too hard, just hard enough that you can feel some tension building in your sternum and in your pectoral muscles, okay? Don't push too hard. I don't have insurance, so don't sue me on this one. Push just enough that you can feel it, okay? If this looks too much like praying and that's not what your thing, or maybe it is your thing and you like it, keep going with it. But if you don't like it, you can just go like this, okay? Just push like that, that's fine, same thing. Okay, so that's isometric grounding, one version of it. Another one that I like quite a bit is standing in a door frame and just pushing out in the door frame just enough that you're feeling tension in your arms and your pectorals. Okay, you start to feel pressure, and you're actually forcing your nervous system back out of the red zone, back into the yellow zone, into that fight response. So rage or anger, right? That feels much, much, much better than powerlessness. Okay, so although we have this big issue in the world about rage, I'll talk about this in another video, but that there's something not okay with having rage. Actually, rage feels much better than powerlessness. So if you feel powerless and you can get to feeling rage or anger, go with that. Try to feel a little bit more peaceful as you go, but starting off, this pushes you into that yellow zone, so we like that. Okay, another thing that you can do is you can run on the spot. Okay, this is not exactly isometric grounding, but it forces you into that into the flight response to get away from a stressor. Okay, so that's really useful. Another isometric technique that was actually I actually got it from a colleague of mine named Kyle Poon, and he's got a great YouTube channel called Calm with Kyle. Check it out. Really, really, really useful stuff. I'm not sure if this one's on there, but I remember he taught it during an EMDR training, which I helped out with as well, where it's called Criss Crosses. You take one arm, so this is my right arm, and you're going to put it against your left leg. You can't see my knee up here, but you're going to touch it against your knee best you can, and then your left arm, right knee, and you just go back and forth. Okay, so a couple of things that this does is, this is number one, grounding you. It's very, if you're really dissociated, this is going to keep you standing still, because you could easily fall, and you have to keep your balance. So that's very grounding to keep your balance. Okay. Another thing is your feet, left, right, left, right, left, right. This is bilateral stimulation, which has a grounding or relaxing effect on the nervous system. It's distracting as well. Okay, so walking is a good exercise to help with anxiety, with dissociation as well. But as you're doing this, you're getting your left and right steps in. You're also crossing the midline in the body. Okay, so the right arm is actually the left hemisphere of your brain, and the left arm is actually the right hemisphere of your brain. So you're getting information to cross over that corpus callosum in your brain, centering your nervous system, and you're actually engaging your core muscles, your arms, your legs, your abdominals, just a whole bunch of your body is being grounded in this moment. So I like that one quite a bit. It keeps clients grounded in the moment. So that's one of my favorite techniques. This is the Criss Crosses. I'm really grateful for Kyle showing me that one. A lot of clients have been really benefited by that. Okay. And a couple other ones that you can do. There's isometric grounding. So if you're on a chair, you won't be able to see me right now because I'm not able to show you, but you can just, your knees are here, and you put your hands on your knees, push up with your knees, down with your hands. Okay, so that's another way of doing that. Okay, where you feel tension in your abs and your leg muscles, and like that's a tension, and so you actually get grounded by doing that. So that's a couple of excellent grounding techniques. I really love those isometric grounding techniques, and I'm going to pause here on these because there's a whole lot of other excellent techniques. So if you liked what you saw today, please follow me. Like the video, follow, subscribe, and please share it with anybody that you think could be benefited by watching this, and comment so that I can help to determine whether or not this is landing. Let me know what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, if you have other techniques that you like, or if you want me to do another video on a different technique, let me know, and I will do my best to get that up there as soon as possible. That's what I'm here to do, is help as many people as I possibly can with your anxiety or depression, whatever particular mental health disturbance or distress you have going on. I want to help with that. And of course, if you want a free consultation, reach out to us. Google us at GrigoreCounseling.com. You can get a free consultation and determine to see if EMDR is the right type of therapy for you. But anyway, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to see you in the next video.